T minus 20 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Good morning, everybody. It is time once again for Out of the Tunnel, presented to you by Jack Wagon Sports. We have a very fun show we're going to bring to you this beautiful Saturday morning. This is the first Saturday to me. It actually feels like fall. Down here in North Carolina, it's not even going to get above 80 degrees, so we were super excited for that. It's just a beautiful day all around. But welcome to Out of the Tunnel, like we just said. As always, Slade, Nick, and George are here. We finally have all three of us back together again for this show, so we're super excited. A Big Ten heavy show, I will admit, this week, but it is what it is. Well, we are going to get right into our news for the week. Slade, we're going to kick it off, or excuse me, Nick, we're going to kick it off with you. Michigan is hosting Maryland this week. Is it, we kind of want to discuss it, is this going to be their first big test of the season, or do we think it's just going to be another, just kind of mop the floor and get ready to move on to next week?
Yeah, so we talked about it a little bit the other day. Obviously, the people don't know about that, but there's a big question mark on this game because Maryland hasn't really faced any real threat either so far. They've looked pretty good, but obviously, they're unranked. Michigan's ranked number 4. Everybody assumes Michigan is one of those 4 playoff teams, barring any weird stuff with Ohio State or whatever. But in my opinion, they haven't faced a Maryland or an offense like this Maryland offense yet. This Maryland offense is very explosive, can put up big plays, can put up points quickly. And Michigan on the same side hasn't really faced any real threat. Now, the question mark here is how good is Maryland to really put that test on Michigan? I think especially at the beginning, it's probably going to be close. Maybe the first half, unless Michigan just comes out firing. But I don't think Maryland's going to be able to stop Michigan enough to make this an interesting game. But I think, like I said, the first half is really going to put some pressure on Michigan, and we're going to see. Like we had talked about a possible upset here. Neither one of us really believed that the upset was fully possible, but definitely thought that Michigan was going to give them some trouble. So it's going to be an interesting game to kind of see if this Michigan team is as good as what they were last year.
Slade, want to get your thoughts on this real quick?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be a really interesting game. I think that Maryland in having Tua, his little brother, it's really going to be interesting to see how they play out. He's got a lot of yards already to start the season. They're a very offensive team, so I'll be interested to see if Michigan's defense can kind of just hold them out today. Kind of make it seem as if Maryland's offense isn't even there in how their previous games have looked already this season with 50-some to nothing.
Yeah. I just want to point out the fact real quick in our Jack Wagon Sports rankings, Michigan is the number 2 team coming into this game, and Maryland is 24th. So, I mean, technically it makes it a ranked matchup, but that's just for us. But no, I think this game is going to be a little bit closer than what Michigan has had to deal with so far. I don't think Maryland's a pushover by any means. I still think Michigan wins this game handily. I would say by 2 scores at least. I think J.J. McCarthy is just way too good at quarterback. And I think this Michigan offense takes another step from what it did last year. We saw their running game last week just completely take over that game, which is good to see. Again, yeah, it's UConn, and I understand that. And, you can say about their schedule what you will. But at the end of the day, they still went out there. And a lot of these teams, and like you said, we discussed this before, a lot of these teams that play these lackluster schedules kind of take these weeks off. They don't go out there and just absolutely blow out people unless you're like Alabama, Georgia, teams like that. Even Georgia only beat Stanford by 30 points. So there is definitely some questions around of all these other teams, and there's still plenty of questions around Michigan still. But they went out there, they did what they had to against those first three opponents. Didn't leave any doubt. Didn't There was no questions about, oh, hey, are they really that good? It's like, no, okay, they went out there, they handled their business. And I think this is definitely going to be a good team. It's going to be a great matchup once they start getting into the Big Ten schedule more and more here. I think going to Iowa next week is going to be a very tough test. It always is. Even when that team sucks, that is a tough environment to get into. They have Penn State coming up in a few weeks, obviously Michigan State, and then Ohio State too. But I think they're going to have a very challenging year ahead. I think Maryland starts to push the envelope with them a little bit, but I don't think they're quite there yet. Um, but like I said, I still have them winning the game by at least two scores. I think they're 17.5 point favorites right now. It would be right around there, in my opinion. Moving on, we're going to talk about your guys' favorite team now. Penn State has consistently climbed the rankings ever since week 0. Now they weren't ranked until beginning of last week, but still, you could tell they're far improved from what people thought they would be, and they've continued to improve week to week. Slade, I want to talk to you real quick and just get your thoughts on, as they continue to climb, how high do we think they can realistically go?
Yeah, so I think it's interesting to see that they're at 14. I think me and Nick were kind of in agreement last week in that they should not have been ranked yet last week, and so I think that their win against Auburn and the way that they did it, couple scores they were able to put up on Auburn, I think that it really shows that they deserve to be ranked. I'm still worried because they have 2 top 5 matchups coming up in the next 3-4 weeks here, barring any losses from those 2 teams. They face Michigan in 2 weeks, and then they face Ohio State in, like 4 or 5 weeks.
It was 5. I
So
think there's some. I think the whiteout's in between there. I believe.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
Minnesota. Yep.
Yeah, so and I mean, so it's just gonna be a big 3 weeks there because Minnesota is not someone to look, over as an easy team either. Um, I think that a lot of people are upset, obviously, that they're the whiteout game when there's 2 games like that smacked around them, but, um yeah, I think it's gonna be interesting. I think Michigan State is still a pretty good team, even though they got their upset last week that Nick had called. Um,
Sort of.
so yeah, it'll be interesting. I think that they could realistically, with other losses and stuff like that, I think we could see them climb into the top 10 before they go to Michigan in 2 weeks. But then after that, if they lose there, I think that they're able to stay in the top 25, but then another loss to Ohio State and they're out. So they have to win against either Michigan or Ohio State to stay in that top 25. We had talked about it before in that 9-3 is kind of what we see as their floor. Like we can see them losing to Michigan and Ohio State, and then possibly someone else like a Minnesota or a Michigan State. But I really would like to see them switch up the QB situation. I'm gonna continue to say it. I hope that they can just get some solid work out of the backup and just kinda try and get like a 10-2 season, something like that, something to build on for next season. I don't see them making the playoffs this year, but yeah, it'll be interesting. What are your guys' thoughts on it?
Yeah, just real quick, I just wanted to go over the schedule for Penn State real quick. So Central Michigan today at home. Next week, the Northwestern at home. Then they travel to Michigan, Minnesota at home for the whiteout game. Then Ohio State home, uh, at Indiana, Maryland at home, at Rutgers, and then home against Michigan State to wrap up the regular season. Nick,
And
we'll go to you quick. Oh, yep.
real quick, so Central Michigan is the only team that you named right there that are not undefeated on the season so far. Obviously, we're only 3 games in, but every team, including Indiana, until you get to Michigan State at the end, are all undefeated right now at 3-0. So it'll be interesting.
Nick,
Yeah. So, like you said, we talked about it. We weren't really sure before the Auburn game if they should have been ranked. As Penn Staters, we've seen fourth ranked, fifth ranked, sixth ranked, whatever, get a little overhyped and then end up taking a loss and kind of free fall outside of the top 25. After that. So we were both very cautious about where we were ranked. And actually, George and I were talking about it before you hopped on this morning. I'm okay with 14. I like 14 right now. We had a good game against Purdue in the season opener, tough environment. And then, went out to Auburn and obviously did what we did out there. I like 14. I told George, I do think that there's a couple teams ahead of us that haven't proven that they're better than us yet. But I'm not complaining. I'll take a 14, we got two lighter games, compared to what some of the rest of our schedule looks like. And don't worry, we love dogs here. We love dogs. Um, but I'm cool with where we're at. I think that we could go into the bye week and then into Michigan, being in the top 10, and I will be perfectly fine with that. It'll make a good headline for the ratings. But yeah, I think they deserve it, and I think that we're right where we need to be. We go into that bye week and then into Michigan sitting at 5-0. We're cool with that. I think we have a chance. I don't think that Michigan is unattainable. We're a couple weeks away from that. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But I'm happy with where we're at. The biggest thing for me is the run game, and mostly Nick Singleton. Our other running backs have been doing great too, but we've seen in Auburn, I think Sean Clifford threw 182 yards, and it wasn't because he had a bad game. It was because we didn't need him to throw the ball. And I think the more we can put ourselves in that situation, especially with Sean Clifford on the field, the better that we're going to be as a team. And obviously, Clifford hasn't played bad this year, so I'm happy to see where things go from here.
Yeah, I think the most surprising thing about Penn State's offense coming in, like we knew already what Clifford brought to the table, and we know you either get Jekyll or you get Hyde with him. So far, I really feel like we've seen a good Sean Clifford. He hasn't played terribly. He's made not as many as mistakes as he did in the second half of last season when the calls for him to get out were really, really growing.
Yeah.
As far as their offense, if they can, like you just said, if they can continue to run the ball like this, I don't think anybody people were hoping their run game would improve. I don't think anybody expected it to be like
No.
this. This reminds me of back when Saquon and Miles Sanders were there, and you guys could just run the ball at will. And like you said, that's going to help alleviate a ton of pressure on Sean Clifford. Again, we need to see what Michigan really is like, against a little bit stiffer competition. Hopefully, we get a glimpse of that this week and next week, especially because I would hate for Penn State to walk in there and be like, okay, well, we haven't really gotten a good look at this team. They haven't been challenged at all.
Yeah.
That's going to be a very tough environment for them to go into. When Michigan is good, their fans show up. It is a difficult, even when they're not good, they still show up. It's always a difficult environment, but I feel like it's even more so when Michigan is really good. So that is definitely going to be a difficult game for them. But if they can either win that or, who knows, maybe they upset Ohio State later in the season. I think you count this as a win, but you absolutely need to play both of those teams close. I think they do. That defense is still one of the top in the country, and that's what's going to help carry them. So I'm super excited to see these games coming up for Penn State.
Yeah,
I
and
think
I just wanted to mention something when you're done, just
yeah,
so you
go
can
ahead.
go on to the next thing. Okay. So I had sent this to you guys, but just an idea as a Penn State fan to get all the other Penn State fans excited, whether it's for this season or next season. Nick Singleton is currently first in 50-plus yard scrimmage plays, first in 30-plus yard runs, first in 40-plus yard runs, first in 50-plus yard runs, first in yards per carry, tied for first with 40-plus yard scrimmage plays, 10th in yards per game, 14th in rushing yards, and tied for 18th in touchdowns. And he doesn't turn 19 for another 5 months. So, a lot to look forward to.
Yeah,
Also,
mean,
something to look forward to for Penn State fans is they are serving alcohol in the stadium now.
Yeah. So you can't go wrong at this point.
yeah, they're going to need it for that Ohio State game. But no,
Can
I
you
am.
imagine if they win that game? It'll look like the Waste Management when someone got a hole in one
Yeah.
and they're just throwing beers on the field.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
they're going to turn and go, you know what? Maybe this is a bad idea. No,
That'll be the
but
last one.
it like I said before, it's really good to see Penn State have a great running game again. And like you just said, Nick Singleton is young. He's a freshman. This offense is going to be very scary to watch when Drew Allard gets a full-time starting job, probably next season. So it's going to be a lot of fun to see that. Moving on, there has been some surprising teams to start the season after only 3 weeks in. I think the biggest name on that list is nobody saw Kansas being 3-0. And across the country this year, there has been the rise of basketball schools. So we just want to talk about that real quick, go into some of these schools and the records of the past and how they're doing so far this year. So I'm going to start with what I think is the benchmark team, and that is Kentucky. Now, Kentucky has built up a consistent program the last few years and really become one of the top half teams in the SEC, especially the SEC East. Mark Stoops took over that program in 2013 and has built a consistent program to go challenge for not just bowl games, but challenge the top tier teams in that program, like Georgia, like Florida. Um, and so I just wanted to start with them, get kind of the benchmark of where these other schools are looking to eventually head. So, like I said, Kentucky, Mark Stoops came on in 2013. Their records since then were 2-10, back-to-back 5-7 seasons, back-to-back 7-6 seasons. Then they went 10-3 and they beat Penn State in the Citrus Bowl. Then they went 8-5,
Had to
5-6.
put that in there.
I did, and then last year they went 10-3. So again, this is a school so long ago when Kentucky basketball was winning national championships left and right. It seemed like, and nobody really cared about this football program. Mark Stoops came in. He got the board of trustees to believe in him. They bought into his vision, and now they continue to pour money into that program and grow the facilities and just grow. Um, the last 3-0 start was in 2018, excuse me. The next basketball school that is on the rise here lately is Syracuse. Their last 3-0 start was in 2018 as well. 4-0 was also 2018 as they went to 4-0 last night, beating Virginia at home in probably one of the worst football games I've ever watched. But this, again, is a program that they had really good success under the new head coach at first, and then all of a sudden they kind of hit some stumbling blocks. There's been some calls for him to get fired, and now all of a sudden, like I just said, they're out of the gate 4-0 this year. I don't think anybody saw that coming after going 10-3 in his third year, 5-7, 1-10, and then 5-7 again last year. So they're either going to go 10-3 this year, or they're not going to win another game. And so again, this is another program that is starting to build consistency and somebody to not just take lightly on your schedule anymore. Somebody to actually fear coming up. The Syracuse Dome is becoming one of the toughest places to go play. We saw them upset Clemson a few years ago. It's a very covered, very tight, compact dome. It gets loud. I mean, we've seen it in basketball season before. Even when that thing is only half full, because they cut it off at the 50-yard line for basketball season, it does not lend itself to visiting teams. The third surprising basketball school out of the gate this year is Duke. Their last 3-0 start was in 2018, along with their last winning season. Their last bowl game was also that year. They won the Independence Bowl. Their records, they just got a new head coach this year. Their records are 8-5, 5-7, 2-9, and 3-9 in the past. I don't think anybody saw the new head coach coming into Duke, taking that program over and taking them to new heights like he has so far. This has been a team that looks really, really good out of the gate. Again, they haven't played super stellar opponents or anything, but they're going out there, they're handling their business, and they're doing a great job. And last but not least, we're going to talk about Kansas. Kansas, and I brought this up on the show last week, but Kansas, the last time they started 3-0 was 2009. Their last winning season was 2008. Their last bowl game was also in 2008. They won the Insight Bowl. The last time they won more than 3 games was also in 2009. Their records since 2008 are 12-1, 8-5, 5-7, 3-9, 2-10, 1-11, 3-9, 3-9, 0-12, 2-10, 1-11, 3-9, 3-9, 0-9, 2-10. So there was 3 seasons in there where they did not win a game at all. And there's so many coaches that went into this program. Charlie Weiss went there. He was supposed to be the savior. Les Miles went there. Again, he's supposed to be the savior, and nobody could save this program. All of a sudden, they bring in this new head coach 2 years ago. People think, okay, it's going to be the same thing. There's been calls for people to just scrap this program. Just stop. Just invest all the money into basketball and the other sports that people actually care about. There must be something in the water out there in Lawrence, but the head coach has done a great job of getting not just the team, but I feel like the community around the team has really started to buy into the program. They sold out the game for today against Duke. Players are actually wanting to improve this program. Jalen Daniels has become arguably one of the best quarterbacks in college football. He's going out there, and Kansas just isn't winning like close games like they had before, and they squeak by. They're going out there and putting it to a lot of these teams. They went to a very good Houston team last week and beat them by 2 scores. This is an offense that looks really, really good. They went into West Virginia, a very tough environment, went up against JT Daniels, probably one of the best offenses we're going to see out of the Big 12 this year when he's healthy. And they beat them by 2 scores in overtime, which you never see. So I don't think this is a team that it needs to be taken lightly. Texas especially needs to pay attention, but if they can win today, if they can win today, they are absolutely going to be in prime position for making it to a bowl game. I easily see them winning 2 conference games if they can continue this trend. But I want to get your guys' thoughts real quick on not just Kansas, but all the schools I just mentioned. Nick, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so first up, to get the big one out of the way, Kansas. I mean, this was a team the last 5+ years. I mean, all the years that you just listed off, where if they were going up against a Group of Five opponent, 9 times out of 10, you were choosing the Group of Five opponent. And obviously they've turned themselves around. They've got themselves at 3-0. There is a lot of hype and a lot of energy and a lot of electricity around that team that I haven't seen since watching Kansas basketball. It's great to see. Obviously, we love competition and we love to see. We don't want to come out here every Saturday morning and be like, yeah, these teams are going to win, these teams are going to lose. So that's nice to see, first of all. But for the basketball schools in general, um, eh, I love it. We made fun of every team that you just named multiple times, because they're nothing in college football. And we see those teams turning themselves around. And, whether it's boosters, whether it's coaching, whether it's players wanting to be there, whatever it is for all those schools, it is working. Kentucky had a whole lot of help with Will Levis going there. I think he's a great quarterback. Us Penn Staters would have rather seen him the last couple years than Sean Clifford, but it is what it is. Especially looking at the way he plays now. But it's great to see. It's great for the sport. It's great for the fans. Like you said, they just sold out this game this week. If you would have told me that either stadium had sold out for a Kansas Duke game, I would have called you an idiot. But here we are. They're both sitting at 3-0. We were talking about flying out there to do the game day show there. Obviously, didn't happen. But nonetheless, it's exciting for the sport. It's exciting for me. And I'm sure there's a whole lot of other people that are excited about it as well. So.
Slade, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think I like that Nick threw in the Penn State part there with Will Levis, so I'm gonna use that a part of that in mind too. I think the easiest way to show as to how these teams were able to turn things around in what looks like overnight, even though you had named it off and that it's been multiple seasons that they've been trying to work towards this, um, is schools that are known for something else or that the money is all being funneled to something else, which in these schools' instances is basketball. I mean, these schools, their basketball coaches are the highest paid coaches in the school, whereas at Alabama, their football coach is the highest paid. At Georgia, their football coach is the highest paid. It just shows where their money is being focused at. Um, so I think that it's just really easy to overlook a team like this or a sport like this at these specific schools and just not even realize that they are putting more money into the recruiting. They are doing little bit different things with their coaching and different things. I mean, if you think about it, not a lot of places know that Penn State's their best sport is wrestling and has been for the past 10 years. That in terms of winning percentage, there I am fighting words again. It's no match. Not even Nick Saban and Alabama and their playoff percentage matches up with Penn State and their championship percentage when it comes to wrestling. But nobody knows that. Like, unless it's someone that is around the sport of wrestling. Everyone knows that Penn State football is where all the money goes. So I think that that's kind of the same thing. Kansas, Duke, um, a lot of these other schools, like you had mentioned, all the money is being focused on basketball. All of their TV deals, stuff like that, it's all being focused towards basketball. So it's really interesting to see. I think it's crazy that I mean it's funny we say that they sold out the game today. It's 47,000 people.
Yeah.
Um, so I mean it's crazy because that's a lot for them.
Yeah.
Uh, I saw that Kansas's their school's Twitter put out, and I think I sent it to you guys about how they sold the game out, and someone was like, and it's gonna sound like 100,000 people are there. And, someone commented and was like, "How would you know what 100,000 people sound like?"
Um, yeah, the last thing I'm going to talk about real quick because you guys both talked about Will Levis, and there's another quarterback in this conversation that I want to give attention to, not just Jalen Daniels. It's Garrett Schrader from Syracuse. Slade and I were watching the game together last night. He did throw his first interception of the season, but this is somebody who has looked impressively good through the first 4 games. Like I just said, only one interception. His QBR is 163.8 so far, 986 yards, 8 touchdowns, that one interception, uh, completing 66.4% of his passes. He's the reason Syracuse is at 4-0. He has been a great leader for them. This team has really bought in. And believe it or not, Mike Leach tried to make this guy a wide receiver in his air raid offense. He transfers to Syracuse, and now he's booming. There's a lot of talk about him already, possibly getting drafted to the NFL. Hopefully he stays healthy. Hopefully he gets to live that dream and can continue this consistency. But I just wanted to give him a quick shout out because Slade and I were watching it last night and live. Just great reads, great throws. Somebody who absolutely deserves a little bit more attention. I don't think he's ever going to get the Heisman hype, especially being from Syracuse. If they end up going undefeated, who knows? Maybe, but we're probably a long way away from that. Moving on, it is time to give you our upset alerts. Now, the past 2 weeks, I have got one right. Nick has got one right, so that means it's Slade's turn. So whoever
I
Slade
hope
puts on
not.
upset, yeah, I swear to God. But Nick, we'll go to you first. Who is your upset alert?
Yeah, so I'm going with Miami this week. I believe they're ranked. I didn't write it down here, but I believe it's 25. I think. But nonetheless, they're facing Middle Tennessee State, and this is a very talented Middle Tennessee State. Definitely should not be taken lightly. Especially watching some of the lows that we've seen from Miami this year. I think they had a good start. I think that they might have got a little ahead of themselves, kind of started looking towards the end of the season, maybe, or whatever it was. They just kind of fell off a little bit. And I think Middle Tennessee State is going to push them today. And I think very easily, especially if they can keep themselves in this game, they have a good chance of winning.
I don't think it's that they got ahead of themselves. I think Mario Cristobal just kind
Mario
of
Cristobal is just Mario Cristobal.
yeah, pretty much.
And
Slade, who's your upset alert?
My upset alert is going to be Oregon. I think that we talked about it at the beginning of the season. They had a tough start to the season in terms of competition. Um, we've already seen them go up against Georgia at the beginning and then BYU last week. So far already this season, they faced two teams that were ranked above them. Um, they were able to get the win last week. It it was interesting to watch. Like you had said, Bo Nix, he did really, really good last year. That was the way that you expected him to play all season.
Mhm,
Just based on the first 2 weeks, though, I really kind of expect, kind of a drop off. He did do good in the second week, but it was a high school team that they played. So, and that's no hate because Penn State does the same thing and plays high school teams. Uh, it'll be interesting. So Oregon averages like over 200 yards rushing a game right now,
mhm,
and Washington State only gives up about 90 a game. So if Washington State is able to really hold them when it comes to the rushing game, I think that this can be a lot closer. And the spread right now is only a touchdown. I think it's 6.5 or 7 points.
mhm,
So I think that that running game part is going to be the part that Oregon really needs to get going first and get moving the entire game because I think that that's going to be their key to winning today. Both teams can pass the ball. Both teams' defenses kind of give up about 200 yards passing a game. So they're
mhm.
pretty averagely matched when it comes to the passing defense and offense. I think the rush game is going to be the part that wins this game. So I think that's Oregon's key to winning today. I think if they're not able to get that going, I think that they're in that scare mode.
Yeah. No, I think Washington State is a very underrated team. This is a team we saw go into Wisconsin and win a game. I don't think they get enough respect for that. I absolutely think this is going to be a close game, and it's a conference game, and especially when Oregon and Washington State play, it always seems to be a last second, kind of game. So yeah, by no means is this a cakewalk for Oregon. I think it's fair to put them on upset alert, and I'm their fan. Um, but I think our offense has finally started to click. I'm really excited to see, the better competition we can start playing. Again, I said it going into last week. I thought BYU had one of the best defenses in the country, and not to toot Oregon's horn, but they just went out there and shredded them. So if we can continue and keep up that momentum, I think this is definitely a team to watch out for. But yeah, again, Washington State is not a team to be taken lightly. Like I just said, they went into a ridiculously tough environment in Madison against a ranked Wisconsin team and just stuffed them. Wisconsin could not move the ball all day, and so yeah, like you just said, not a team to glance over at all. My upset alert: I'm going with Clemson. I'm tired of people overhyping this team. I can't stand this team. They're ranked number 5. Their fans are constantly acting like they deserve to be number 1, even though they have not played anybody. The 3 nobodies they have played, they have let hang around for a whole half. They went into each of the 3 halves leading by a combined like 15 points against nobodies. Um, Wake Forest, I don't think gets enough attention. Like we said, Sam Hartman's back. He's starting to find his rhythm. They struggled a little bit against Liberty last week, but again, I feel like Liberty is a very underrated team. Yeah, Malik Willis isn't there, but this still got great recruits coming into there. Hugh Freeze is doing great things with that program. Um, for me, it comes down to that. I think Clemson gets a slow start as they have the past few weeks. I think Wake Forest can get a little bit of a lead. Yeah, Clemson might come back in the second half, but I think Wake Forest is just enough to stay ahead. I think they knock off Clemson. I think it's going to be a great atmosphere up there in Winston-Salem. I'm still trying to go. And so I don't see this being a touchdown game for Clemson winning by spread 7.5 right now. I would take the over at 55.5. I understand the hype around their defense and how good they are in things, but at the end of the day, I don't think Clemson is overall as good. And I think the biggest issue is DJ Uyunglele is still their quarterback. If he plays the whole game, they are absolutely not going to win. And so not super excited for Clemson's offense until they can prove me otherwise.
Yeah.
But it is time to get into our cash out picks and our game picks. So we're going to update you guys on the standings real quick. So quick look at them here. Nick leads the game picks 26 and 11 so far. Slade is 23 and 14, and I am at 21 and 16. Our cash out leaderboard. Nick also leads the way over there at 11 and 5. I am at 6 and 10, and Slade is at 6 and 11. So we'll do cash out first. Nick, who are you taking this week?
Yeah, so like the past 2 weeks, I got to take the under in the Iowa game. That's Iowa at Rutgers, under 34.5. I'm going to hammer that under every week until they prove me wrong. And then my second one is the Wisconsin at Iowa or Ohio State game, going over 56.5. This game's going to go one of two ways. This is either going to be a battle and both teams are going to score pretty decently, or Ohio State's going to run away with it. Either way, I think over 56.5 is very mild. So,
I think Ohio State scores 56 themselves.
Yeah,
I think that's going to be the kind of game it is today. And then as far as the Iowa game, I think this is the week it hits the over, but only because of Rutgers. I think Rutgers blows Iowa out. That's
yeah.
my
See, I was thinking the same thing, but I'm like, you know what? It's done me nice the last 2 weeks. I might as well go for it again.
No, I don't want. I shouldn't say blow out, but I think Rutgers wins this game handily over Iowa. Slade, who are you taking this week?
Yeah, so I have two. The first one I'm going with is kind of in agreement with you with your upset. I'm going Wake at plus 7.5. I think it even has gotten down to plus 7. I think that it's going to be really interesting. I think that ever since their quarterback, what's his name, Hartman,
Yeah.
ever since he came back, their team has just been on fire. They've been on cloud 9. Eventually, they're gonna get knocked down from that. I just hope it's not this week. I think that they're at home against a top-ranked team. I think that they're really gonna show up, and they're gonna end up putting themselves higher up than 21st in the rankings after this week. My second one is Oklahoma at -13. I think that their team has sneakily been underrated, even with being ranked. I think it's gonna be a good game, but it'll just be interesting. I mean, they're 6th against and they're going against Kansas State. I honestly think that they should be ranked above Michigan in the rankings. I mean, I know that our top 25 doesn't say that based on schedule and everything like strength of opponent. Uh, but their quarterback has just been on one this season. I mean, he's got 800 passing yards, 7 touchdowns. Their rushing game is also good. They've got 2 or 3 touchdowns with their running back Gray, and so I think it's going to be a big blowout. If the over under wasn't set at 53, like as an even number, I would probably bet on it, but I don't like the even numbers.
They always scare you because, like,
Yeah.
what? Which one was it? One of you two, I remember, like 3 in a row took the even
That was
number and
me,
it hit
yeah.
right on the even number.
But yeah, no. As far as talking about Oklahoma real quick, yeah, I think everybody thought when Lincoln Riley left and Caleb Williams left and all these great players left, oh, this team's they're gonna stink. They're not gonna be good. Brent Venables has come out and shown that that's not going to be the case. He has them ready to play every week. They have not taken any weeks off so far. they went into a very tough environment in Lincoln last week, and a lot of people thought, oh, Nebraska can hang around a little bit, and Oklahoma said no, they can't, and they went out there and just steamrolled them, put up 49 unanswered on them. Yeah, absolutely. I don't think they're getting the respect they deserve, and I don't think they will for a few more weeks. Why? Just because people are like, oh, it's not Lincoln Riley, it's not the same. Um, but like I said, I think this is definitely a team to watch out for. Um, my cash out picks this week, I'm going to go with Vanderbilt plus 40 at home against Alabama. Not saying they're going to upset Alabama. I think Alabama wins this handily, but I think Vanderbilt can keep it closer than 40. I think they're a very underrated team. Alabama has been known to take their foot off the gas pedal the last few weeks, especially against lesser opponents. I think they get up by 30, and I think they coast. And I think Vanderbilt can score at least 1 or 2 touchdowns. And then I'm also going with Arkansas plus 2.5. I think Arkansas wins this outright. Texas A&M, Haynes King is not a king. If he's a king, then I'm a god. He is terrible, and I don't see Texas A&M scoring very many points at all. Arkansas definitely has question marks at the quarterback with KJ Jefferson. He plays great one series. The next series, he looks worse than Haynes King.
The old Sean Clifford effect.
Yeah.
Gotta love it.
So, I mean, if he can at least put together a couple drives, they easily score. Arkansas's defense is one of the best in the country. Yeah, they got off to a slow start last week. I think, though, it's because they're looking ahead to this week. They want to go out there and get a statement win. Like I said, they're coming in as underdogs, even though they're ranked higher, and I think they're overall a much better team. So I'm taking Arkansas plus 2.5. So that will be our cash out picks for this week. It is time now for our game picks. So let's get it started with one of the games we just mentioned. We have Clemson at Wake Forest. This will be at 12 p.m. on ABC. Clemson opens as a 7.5-point favorite. The over-under is now covered up by our logo. But Nick, who are you going to take?
Yeah, so I have Clemson in this one. I'm right on page with you guys. I think this is a game that Clemson could lose. I think this is a game this might be, it is their biggest test of the year so far. We talked about DJ. I call him DJ Ugabuga because I'm not even attempting to pronounce his last name. George has it down pat. But that defense for me is really the big question mark. Like, obviously, they have some issues on offense that they got to get figured out if they want to live up to that number 5 ranking. But the defense to me hasn't shown that they're the same defense that we're used to Clemson putting on the field. And Wake can put up points. Hartman knows how to get the ball out, knows how to pick apart your defense. And if they let him do that, and Wake Forest can, make moves on the defensive side of the ball, this is going to be a scary game for Clemson.
Yeah, the over-under, by the way, is set at 55.5. Slade, who's your pick?
Yeah, so I think here I went with Clemson, but I like that +7 or +7.5 for Wake Forest. I think this could be much closer than the touchdown. I think, like you said, I think that Wake Forest could win this, but I think it's going to come down to the end of the game. Wake Forest is going to have the ball. They're going to turn the ball over. Clemson's going to go down, kick a field goal, and win by 2 or 3. I think that's how this game is going to go. I think it's going to be very close, though.
I'm going with Wake Forest at home. Again, I think Clemson is just way too overrated. I think Wake Forest is better than a lot of people give them credit for. I think Clemson digs themselves in way too big of a hole in the first half. Even if their stellar freshman QB comes in, I don't think it's enough to save them. It's too early, and I think Wake Forest walks out of there with the win. Moving on, we have Maryland visiting number 4 Michigan. This will be 12 p.m. on Fox. Michigan opens as a 17.5-point favorite. The over-under is set at 65.5. Nick, we'll go with you first.
Yeah, like we talked about at the top of the show, I think this is going to be a good game, especially early on. But I got Michigan taking this one. I think they're just going to be I think they're going to get their eyes open today, but they're going to be good enough, to get it done. Like you said, I think around the 2-score, 10 to 17 range.
Slade?
Yeah, I also am going to go with Michigan. I think that the over/under is scary to me. I think that the defenses could definitely pick up, and then Michigan could put their backups in, being 2-3 scores up, and it could end at like a I don't know, like a 30-something to 17 or something. I think that the 17.5 points is scary also because, like Nick said, 10 to 17 is about that range that you kind of see this spread at. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah. I'm also going to take Michigan, which of course makes it the Jackwagon Sports jinx alert. But like I just said earlier, I think
Let's go Maryland. Oh, I can't believe I just said that, but
I think JJ McCarthy is ridiculously good. If he can continue his style of play and his pace of play, I think you can throw his name in the Heisman conversation. I'm super excited to see where their season goes from here. Again, I think Maryland is a very good team and a lot better than what people are giving them credit for. I just don't think they're quite at Michigan's level yet. Tagovailoa looks really good so far. He's led them on a few comeback wins, especially against SMU last week. So I mean, he has the poise there. This is a team I could see upsetting, and we're going to talk about. I'm not going to say it yet. I don't want to jinx it and give it away, but they can upset some big names later in the season. I think Michigan just has a little bit too much momentum right now, and I see them winning at home. The next game we have Baylor at Iowa State. This will be 12 p.m. on ESPN. Iowa State opens as a 2.5 point favorite. The over under is at 45.5. Nick, who are you going with?
Yeah, I was gonna take this for my upset alert this week, because of Baylor being ranked, but I decided not to cheat 2 weeks in a row. But I'm taking Iowa State in this one. I think that Baylor was one of my favorite teams going into the season, but they've let me down, and I'm sure they feel the same way about themselves. They haven't looked as good as I thought they were going to be this year, and Iowa State has looked great. I think they're going to keep it close. Iowa State's at home, and I think they end up pulling it out.
Uh, Something you don't know how to do. Slade, who are you taking?
I'm also gonna well, actually, I'm not also. I'm gonna go with Baylor. I think that Baylor's gonna get it done this week. I think this is gonna be a shootout. Both teams like to score a lot. I think they both average well over 30 points a game. The over/under being at 45.5, I think that they're gonna hit that in the 3rd quarter. I think this is just gonna be a big shootout.
Yeah, a patented Big 12 shootout. I mean, I kind of agree with Nick. I'm going to take Baylor here, but I agree that Baylor was one of my favorite teams coming into the year. I thought, hey, this is somebody who could go make the college football playoff. They have had an underwhelming, to say the least, offense so far. They let BYU just control the line of scrimmage in and out of that game. Um, but I think now that they're getting into the conference competition, I think they're going to find a different gear. I think they're going to look really good on offense. At least that's my prediction. So I have Baylor winning on the road. The next game up, we have Notre Dame at UNC. This will be 3:30 on ABC. UNC opens as a 1.5 point favorite. The over/under is set at 56.5. Nick, who are you taking?
Yeah, in my opinion, that 1.5 point spread is kind of disrespectful. I mean, I get that it's Notre Dame and I get what they were supposed to be, but we haven't seen that team that they were supposed to be all season yet. And UNC, in my opinion, has been very underrated. They've, especially the offense, has looked very good. You look at that, game against Appalachian State. Both teams put up 60 points, and Notre Dame just hasn't quite gotten it figured out yet, on both sides of the ball, really. So I got to go with my boys down in Chapel Hill.
Slade?
Yeah, so I'm also going with UNC. I think that Notre Dame would have a better record if they didn't play to their opponent's level. I think every week they just play to their opponent's level, and that's what then at the end of the game they can't score to get that win. Then.
Yeah. I'm going to go with UNC as well. So again, the Jack Wagon Sports Jinx, and just so the people at home know, uh, one game a week so far with the Jinx has proven deadly. But it comes down to this: UNC has Drake May quarterback, who's looked ridiculously good, and Notre Dame has Tommy Reese at offensive coordinator. Um, until they show us that they can have a competent offense week in and week out, and they can score points throughout the whole game, not just the first half, not just in the 4th quarter, whatever it may be. I don't have any faith in this Notre Dame team. And like I said, Drake May is playing quarterback at UNC. He has looked ridiculously good the first few weeks here. They're coming off a bye week as well because they played week 0, so they get 2 bye weeks this year. And so I think they're going to be nice and rested. And Notre Dame just has nothing on offense for me to buy in yet. Moving on, we have Texas visiting Texas Tech to kick off their Big 12 play. This will be 3:30 on ESPN. Texas opens as a 6.5 point favorite. The over/under is 59.5. Nick, we'll go to you first. Who are you taking?
Yeah, I took Texas Tech in this one, and I thought about making it my upset alert, but I didn't want to. I didn't want to feel too confident about it. But this is in Texas Tech, which is always a difficult place to play. We've seen the highs and lows of Texas so far this season. We've seen them almost beat Bama, and then we've seen them struggle at other times. This in-state little rivalry here always seems to put out a good game, and we've talked about it numerous times. When you let a team that shouldn't be hanging around hang around, especially in their home stadium, you're asking for trouble. Quinn Ewers was back. I don't know to what extent. Like, I don't know if he's fully active. They're going to put him in every snap or whatever. But I have some doubts about Texas today. I know Slade's going to try to tell you Texas is back. Don't listen to him. I got Texas Tech.
Slade, who are you taking?
Yeah, so I'm taking Texas, but I agree that Texas Tech is the better team on paper. Their offense has really been clicking, and like you said, it's in Texas Tech. Um, I do think though that Texas is going to figure out their stuff this week. I think that it seems like Quinn Ewers. How do you say his last name? Ewers.
Ewers,
I
I
think
think.
that yeah, I think that he is just going to be on the sidelines for the majority of the game. They said he's suiting up, but they haven't described, like Nick was saying, what his activity level is going to be. I think it's more of a tactic to where the other team, Texas Tech in this instance, has to prepare for both quarterbacks. Um, they've now had to play all three of their quarterbacks this season. Texas has, so I think that as soon as they get that figured out, as to who's going to be that guy, if Quinn has to sit out another week or two, I think that figuring that out is really going to help their offense. I mean, last week they had a really good offensive showing, so it'll be interesting to see how this week goes.
Yeah, and just real quick, so he's dressing, he's traveling. They haven't announced if he's going to play or yet, and that they're going to keep that under wraps until kickoff. My guess is, but Hudson Card and Malik Murphy were both practicing all week, so they will be ready to go. So it's not like Quinn Ewers needs to play if they want to go ahead and rest him. Maybe they're just playing mind games with Texas Tech. But he will be in Lubbock. He will be dressed, so we'll have to wait and see if he's going to play. I think it'd be really smart of them to sit him for at least another week. Hudson Card looked really good against Alabama. He kept them close, and he looked pretty good last week until he got hurt. I'm going to go with Texas Tech at home, though. I think this is a very close game. It's going to be one score, one way or the other. Texas Tech is coming off a very tough loss to NC State. They should have played a lot better, but NC State just smothered them. They had a couple key injuries as well, so I think they're going to be a little upset. They want to go and get some revenge. And I think just a few too many question marks circling Texas right now. If Quinn Ewers plays, is he going to be healthy enough to play 4 quarters? If he gets hit one time, is going to be something they need to pull him out right away. Um, and I think Texas Tech can hang around just long enough and pull out a surprise victory right at the end. Moving on, College Game Day is in Tennessee this week for Florida at Tennessee. This will be 3:30 on CBS. Tennessee opens as a 10.5 point favorite. The over/under is set at
62.5.
62.5. Nick, we'll go with you first.
Yeah. I this is good. I think this is going to be a great game. This might be the game of the week. But this Tennessee team has slowly become one of my favorite teams in college football. They've looked great. And I don't really think there was a little hype around Tennessee this year, but I don't think that people kind of expected the start that they've had and the way that they've looked. I'm going with Tennessee in this one, but again, I think it's going to be a great game.
Slade, who are you taking?
Yeah, for the same reasons, I'm taking Tennessee. I think that their offense is really clicking. I think that ever since I've seen them against Pitt, I've had a lot of confidence in their team. So I think that they're going to definitely get the win today.
I'm going to go with Tennessee as well, and of course that makes it an up or a jinx alert. But I'm the opposite of you, Nick. I don't think this is close at all. I think Tennessee mops the floor with Florida. This is a very overrated Florida team. I said it week 1 when they got ranked just because they beat Utah at home. They've looked terrible since. They've lost to Kentucky. They let South Florida hang around last week, and the only reason that that game didn't go to overtime is because the holder botched the snap. The kicker kicked the ball as it's laying flat on the ground, and he still almost made the field goal. And so this Florida team is not good. Their quarterback was way overhyped after week 1. I think it's Anthony Richardson. And so I have zero faith in this Florida team, which of course means they're going to go on to win this game now. But I think
Especially with the
Tennessee,
jinx alert.
I know Tennessee is just way too good right now. Hendon Hooker is absolutely just throwing that rock around at QB, and so I have faith in this Tennessee team. Again, now they're going to go lose.
With a name
Next,
like Hooker, you ought to be able to throw something around, huh?
next game up, we have Minnesota at Michigan State. This will be 3:30 on the Big Ten Network. Minnesota opens as a 3-point favorite. The over/under is set at 50.5. Nick, who are you taking?
Yeah, I went with Minnesota on this one. We talked about it a little earlier. I think Minnesota is extremely underrated this year. But don't forget about this Michigan State team. They got taken out of the top 25 after that upset against Kansas, or getting upset by Kansas. But this is still a good team, and it is never easy to go to Michigan State, especially as we start getting later into the year and it starts getting colder and colder. That's never a fun place to play. But I just think this Minnesota offense, they still have Oh, what's the quarterback's name? I just lost it. It was on the tip of my tongue. He's been there for as long as Clifford's been at Penn State.
Yeah,
I I, I literally went to say it and it slipped my mind. But anyway, offense looks great. The defense is obviously their biggest question mark, but Michigan State hasn't exactly been blowing people out of the water with their offense either. This should be a typical, entertaining Big Ten game today. So
Slade, who are you taking?
Yeah, I'm actually going with Michigan State. I think that Minnesota is gonna really do very well. I think the spread being at 3 points shows that Michigan is still a good team, in terms of where they're at, but, um, shout out Hannah. Um, but yeah, I think that Michigan State is gonna be able to hold their own today, and with it being at home, I think that they're gonna be able to get the edge here.
Yeah, I'm taking Minnesota on the road. Again, their offense has looked really good the first few weeks, and this is another team who, alongside Michigan, has played not great opponents so far, but they've gone out there, they've handled their business. They've shut out New Mexico State week one, 38-0. Western Illinois, they beat 62-10, and they beat a terrible Colorado team, 49-7. So their offense is there. I think their defense is there. Way too many question marks around Michigan State. We thought they would have better QB play. That's not the case. Obviously, they're missing Kenneth Walker at running back, and they just have not had the run game. They've gotten off to really slow starts all 3 weeks so far. I think it continues this week, and I think Minnesota gets a big win. They're poised to be not just the best team in the West, but they can start challenging some of the teams in the East. I think they get a big statement win on the road today at a Michigan State team who coming into the season were like, okay, hey, this is somebody who can go out there and challenge Michigan, Ohio State. We didn't even think Penn State was in the picture to be 100% fair to them. We thought, hey, they're going to be a good team, but Michigan State's just better. That's not the case so far. And so I have Minnesota winning on the road. Um, Moving on to the next game, we have Arkansas at Texas versus Texas A&M. This is taking place in Jerry World. This will be 7 p.m. I believe it's on ESPN. Texas A&M opens as a 2-point favorite. The over/under is set at 50.5. Nick, who are you taking?
yeah, I got Arkansas in this one. First of all, typically anytime I see a spread that's less than 2.5 points, especially when it's favored to the team at home, all that tells me is they're giving them home field advantage. I think this Arkansas team is a lot better than Texas A&M. I think that in my opinion, I don't think Texas A&M deserves to be ranked. I don't think that they're a top 25 team in the nation. Arkansas, I've been high on them since the beginning of the season. I think they have a great team. They've consistently been putting themselves in the top 25 each season. They've fallen off, but I don't think that fall off occurs this week. I think they walk out of Texas A&M with a W.
Slade?
Yeah, I agree. I think that Texas A&M is really fighting to try and live up. I mean, the talk that we heard about previous to the season is they had the number one draft class, they are or recruiting class, and obviously that's not for this season. But I think that they're desperately trying to live up to like that they're worth all of those recruits going to their school, and they're just doing a horrible job at it. I mean, they haven't been playing to the standard at which I thought they were gonna play, or I'm sure that they feel like they should be playing. So I think that Arkansas, like you guys, is definitely gonna get the win today.
Yeah. I said it before with my cash out picks. If Haynes King is a king, then I'm a god because he's
He's
terrible.
been waiting over 12 hours to say, or
I said,
almost
I said,
24 hours now
I
to
said
say
it.
that.
I
So.
said it earlier, but no. It, Texas A&M's offense is archaic. Jimbo Fisher will not get with the times and run a modern offense, and teams understand how to stop it now. Arkansas's defense is way too good for that. Again, KJ Jefferson has had his struggles at times, but I think today he gets it under control. He leads his team, to a victory, and I have Arkansas winning as well. Moving on to the next game, we have Iowa at Rutgers, and two surprising teams in the Big Ten West or West and East. Rutgers is undefeated so far. This will be 7 p.m. on FS1. Iowa somehow opens as a touchdown favorite. The over/under is at 34.5, like we just said. Nick, who are you taking?
Yeah. First of all, the 7.5 point favorite is very confusing because I don't even know if Iowa scored a touchdown this season yet. Just kidding. I know they have, but it seems like they haven't. Um, First of all, the defense is going to do what the defense does. I don't think Rutgers has enough in them on their offense to put up more than 20 points. The big question mark obviously is going to be whether Iowa can or not. Which I think they did have 21 either this past week or the week before. So they can score, but that Rutgers defense is not easy. However, I'm going to go with Iowa on the road.
Slade?
Yeah, I agree. I think Iowa's going to get the win today. I think, like Nick had said, it's going to be really hard for Rutgers to put up more than 2 scores against Iowa's defense. So, I think that if Iowa can get some scores, even field goals, if they can get to the other side of the field and kick field goal every possession, I think that they're just gonna be chipping away and they're gonna be able to get there.
Uh, I'm disagreeing with both of you. I'm taking Rutgers at home. It's a Scarlet out. It's a night game. I think it's going to be a great environment out there in Piscataway. I think Rutgers is shocked a lot of people. I think they're very underrated so far, and I think Iowa's way overrated, especially being touchdown favorites somehow. Um, but I think Rutgers can get the ball moving. I think they expose the flaws in Iowa's defense, and I have Rutgers winning at home. And that brings us to the game of the week. We have Duke at Kansas. Imagine at the beginning of the season saying that we were going to put together a Duke and Kansas highlight video.
Yeah.
But this will be the noon kickoff on Fox Sports 1. Kansas opens as a 7.5 point favorite. The over under is at 66.5. Nick, who are you going to take?
Yeah, the first thing I want to say is, kind of like you said, nobody would have thought we would be hyping up Duke and Kansas. This is probably the most hype around a Duke versus Kansas game in, I can only assume, like 30 years, on the football side of the field anyway. But I'm taking Kansas in this one. I think that Duke's 3-0 record is a bit misleading. I don't think that they're on the same level as Kansas. However, if you're Duke, you still got to be proud that you're sitting at 3-0. Not a lot of people would have guessed it. This is going to be an entertaining game because both of these teams starting at 3-0. I'm sure they probably expected themselves to be 3-0 just because that's the kind of mindset you want to have in the locker room. But realistically speaking, they might not have seen themselves here. Both of these teams are going to be fighting to continue that undefeated streak. So be watching at 12 o'clock. It's going to be good.
Yeah. Slade, who are you taking?
I'm taking Kansas. I think it's easy for them to get more than the 7.5 point spread in this game. I think that we said it, college game day should have been there. It's at home. We already know that these schools are rivals when it comes to basketball. I think it's gonna be an electric game. I think that there's not gonna be a lot of defense played. I think that we're gonna see something in the terms of what we've seen with Kansas games already this season. You're gonna see like a 40-30 or a 40-20 game. Um, and I think that it's just gonna be electric.
Yeah. I mean, before I make my pick, shout out to both teams for even being here at this point in the season. Again, it's something we haven't seen from Kansas since 2009. Duke used to show flashes of how good they could be. They've struggled the past few years. I think Kansas is just too much at home. Jalen Daniels is leading the country in QBR at 97.6, thrown for 566 yards and 7 touchdowns. But his legs, I think, are what gets the job done. He does a great job of scrambling outside the pocket and creating plays on the run. I think that improvisation is just too much, and wow, that was a big word for me. Is that's just too much for Duke to handle,
It was
and
sounded out perfectly.
uh, but I have Kansas winning by more than a touchdown at home, and I wouldn't take. I don't know if I take the over there, but 66.5 is a lot.
A lot of
Um,
points.
but that will do it for our episode this week. Thank you guys so much for checking us out, as always. Please join us next Saturday as well for another edition of Out of the Tunnel. As always, we have our weekly podcast on our YouTube, Spotify as well. Please subscribe to our YouTube and hit that notification button so you guys know when we go live every Saturday. We would really appreciate it. And that will do it for Out of the Tunnel week 4. And so we will see you guys for week 5. Enjoy your Saturday. Go watch some college football. Enjoy the beautiful fall weather that we're getting. It is the first Saturday of fall. And we will see you guys next week.
Have a good Saturday.
Get you some Pat McAfee.